Ever wonder what it's like to stare disaster right in the face? To have that chilling realization that something is terribly, terribly wrong. Just moments before everything changes forever. Today, we're re-diving into some of the most heart-stopping stories of last-minute discoveries, warnings from the brink that were either tragically missed or miraculously heeded. These aren't just tales of bad luck. They're powerful lessons in observation, intuition, and the fragile line between a normal day and a catastrophe. Let's start with a story that takes us back to January 28, 1986. The Space Shuttle Challenger was on the launch pad, a symbol of human ambition ready to pierce the heavens. The nation watched, holding its breath in excitement. But behind the scenes, a frantic, desperate battle was being fought. Engineers at Morton Thiokol, the company that built the shuttle's solid rocket boosters, had made a terrifying discovery. The cold Florida weather, which had dropped to freezing temperatures overnight, was a serious threat. They knew the rubber O-rings used to seal the joints of the rocket boosters would become stiff and brittle in the cold. They couldn't guarantee a proper seal. A failure meant hot high-pressure gas could escape. And if that happened, well, the outcome was unthinkable. Engineer Roger Boystooley and his team pleaded with NASA officials. They presented data. They argued, they warned of a potential catastrophe. Their alarming discovery, made just hours before launch, was a clear red flag. They said, "We have to delay." But the pressure to launch was immense. The decision was made to proceed. 73 seconds after liftoff, the O-rings failed, just as the engineers had predicted. Hot gas burned through the external fuel tank, and the Challenger was engulfed in a fireball. It was a disaster that shook the world, and a haunting example of a critical warning that went unheeded. Now, let's fast forward to a different kind of disaster, one unfolding deep beneath the waves. On August 12, 2000, the Russian nuclear submarine Kursk was participating in a naval exercise in the Barents Sea. Sailors were preparing to fire a practice torpedo. But this wasn't a standard torpedo. It used a highly volatile hydrogen peroxide fuel. Unbeknownst to the crew, a faulty weld inside the torpedo casing was slowly leaking this unstable fuel. In the final minutes before the planned launch, the concentration of hydrogen peroxide likely reacted with metal inside the torpedo room, triggering a chemical explosion. This initial blast was powerful, but it was the discovery of what happened next that revealed the true horror. Seismographic stations as far away as Alaska detected 2 explosions. The second was over 250 times more powerful than the first. It's believed that the fire from the initial blast ignited the rest of the torpedoes on board. For the sailors in the forward compartments, there was no warning. But in the rear of the sub, 23 men survived the initial blasts. They gathered in the 9th compartment, in complete darkness, with rising water and dwindling oxygen. Their last moments were recorded in a note found on one of the officers' bodies. They knew help was not coming in time. The alarming discovery for the outside world was not just that the sub had sunk, but the realization that a small, undetectable flaw led to a chain reaction of such epic proportions. Sometimes, the discovery isn't made by experts, but by an ordinary person with a keen eye. Think of the Aloha Airlines Flight 243 incident in 1988. This Boeing 737 was cruising at 24,000 feet over Hawaii when a huge section of the roof simply peeled away, exposing the passengers and crew to the open sky. It was a terrifying ordeal, but what's truly chilling is what a passenger noticed just minutes before the disaster. As she was boarding the plane in Hilo, she saw a crack in the fuselage near the cabin door. She didn't think much of it at the time and didn't mention it to anyone. What she had seen was a sign of critical metal-phatic tiny cracks growing over thousands of flights. The constant pressurization and depressurization had weakened the aircraft's skin. That single, alarming crack was one of many that were about to give way all at once. Miraculously, the pilots managed to land the crippled plane, saving 94 lives. Only one flight attendant was tragically lost. This story is a testament to the pilot's incredible skill, but also a stark reminder that sometimes the most important warning sign is right there in plain sight, waiting for someone to speak up. Let's shift from the skies to the ground, to a disaster that was years in the making but reached its breaking point in minutes. In 1966, in the Welsh village of Aberfan, a mountain of coal waste loomed over the local school. For years, this spoil tip had been growing. piled high from the nearby colliery. The villagers were worried. They knew it was unstable, especially after heavy rain. They'd even written letters of concern, but the National Coal Board dismissed their fears. On the morning of October 21st, after days of relentless rain, workers at the tip noticed something terrifying. A section of the massive pile, saturated with water, began to slide. They saw a depression form at the top, a clear sign of imminent collapse. They tried to raise the alarm, but it was too late. A colossal wave of over 140,000 cubic yards of sludge, rock, and slurry thundered down the mountain. It moved with the force of an avalanche, engulfing everything in its path. Its primary target was the Pantglass Junior School, where lessons had just begun. The avalanche destroyed the school and 20 nearby houses, claiming the lives of 116 children and 28 adults. The alarming discovery by the workers on the tip came only minutes before the disaster. But the true warning had been ignored for years. Sometimes, the last-minute discovery doesn't come from a person at all, but from an animal. There are countless stories throughout history of animals behaving strangely just before earthquakes, tsunamis, or volcanic eruptions. One of the most famous examples is the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. In the minutes before the massive wave hit the coastlines of Sri Lanka and Thailand, witnesses reported something extraordinary. Elephants started screaming and running for higher ground. Dogs refused to go outdoors. Zoo animals rushed into their shelters and wouldn't come out. These animals seemed to sense the danger long before the humans did. Scientists believe they might be able to feel the P waves, the initial, faster seismic waves from an earthquake that are imperceptible to us. Or perhaps they can hear the low-frequency sound of the approaching tsunami. For many coastal communities, this strange animal behavior was the only warning they got. The people who noticed the fleeing animals and followed them to higher ground were the ones who survived. It was a primal, instinctual discovery that saved lives when technology failed. From the complex mechanics of a space shuttle to the simple instincts of an animal, these stories all share a common thread. A critical piece of information that surfaced in the final moments. They show us how quickly a normal day can turn into a fight for survival. They remind us to trust our gut, to speak up when something feels wrong, and to pay attention to the world around us. Because sometimes, a small observation can make the difference between life and death. What do you think? Have you ever had a moment where you just knew something was off right before it happened? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you found this fascinating, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more stories that make you think. See you next time.